Okay, good evening, students. Good evening, the guest and my staff members. We have a very special, well-experienced guest speaker with us today to talk on taking personal responsibility for personal development. Mrs. Kasturi Shelvaraja is the group chief executive. We call it as CEO of Hemas Holdings, and she is also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. And just to give you a briefing about her career ladder, she has started her journey in Hemas in the year 2002, and she has held many senior management positions in her career journey. And 2016, she became the managing director of Hemas Pharmaceuticals, Surgicals, and Diagnostics. Then jumped into the managing director position of Hemas Mobility sector, and finally, she has become the CEO in the year 2020. Within 18 plus years, she has climbed the top of the ladder. According to my knowledge, I'm not a management person. As long as I know, that is the topmost position in her professional ladder. In addition to her career progression, I should make a note of her achievements. She has remarkable achievements. Mrs. Kasturi is currently the first female president of Sri Lanka Chamber of the Pharmaceutical Industry. And she is also in the main committee of the Sri Lanka Chamber of Commerce, that is the largest chamber of commerce. And she is recognized as one of the 12 top women change makers in the country by the Parliament of Sri Lanka in the year 2019. And on top of everything, I said she is very special. The reason is that she has represented Sri Lanka as a member of the national netball and basketball teams. Dear Mrs. Kasturi, Hemas is not new to us, as we had in the chat. Your HR division had very good relations with us, especially the career guidance unit of University of Peradeniya. We had joint programs, and we always welcome industry relations with your prestigious company for mutual benefits. Finally, on behalf of University of Peradeniya, as the director of the career guidance unit, I personally appreciate very much your acceptance of our request, being the CEO of one of the leading companies in the country. Without taking much time, I would like to invite you to start your session. Thank you very much. It's over to you, Mrs. Kasturi.
Thank you, Professor, and good evening to all of you. Good evening to the students and any lecturers who are joining. So I'm attempting this whole module perspective. I generally am not very familiar with this format, but I like the topic. I said yes because I like the topic about taking personal responsibility for self-development. And I think it's very important because there is X amount education system can give you and the universities can give you. That kind of contributes only to about 10% to what a person's development would be. So I remember I have been there, I think long years back, maybe about 8 years back, I came and spoke at one of your events at University of Peradeniya, and I thought it was a gorgeous, beautiful environment. So I was not one of those lucky ones to get a university education. We sat and did CIMA in an institute. So, I mean, y'all are greatly lucky and blessed to be there, but I think y'all also have to understand that is not the end of your journey, or that doesn't encompass what your development would be. So when you talk about personal development, generally self-development, if I look at it from the way I see it, it's who you are. And that's the essence of you. So now today you're talking and you see me as a group CEO, but the essence of me is my journey. You heard professors talking about sports. Through the sports, there's a load of my personality which comes. That is the fact that I'm fearless and whatever comes through that. So the personality is who you are. And I will try and break it into the way I see it. It's two aspects. One is your capability aspect, which kind of comes out in your personality. The second is your the softer side of it is a personality. So you develop two sides of it, your skills and capability and your personality. So if I take the, which is the easier one, if I take the skills and capability side first, right? I think the first thing I would want you all to develop is get your armory of skills, of knowledge. So that's basically you're studying a certain degree, but your knowledge shouldn't be confined to that. So what do I mean? If you see my CV or if you read about it, I have been in an audit firm. I have been in, I studied maths. I ended up in audit firm without even knowing what it was. I have run group IT. I had to learn shared services. I did pharmaceuticals. So in this whole journey and logistics, I was always, my mind was curious. I never said no. So I'll explain that a bit. So now you're like young, right? So you'll wonder, it's easy for this lady to say such a thing. So when I was in school, all I wanted to do was play sports. I was wanted to represent Sri Lanka, win all the tournaments for the school. So when I left school, I was given this job at the audit firm. I didn't know what auditing was, but I accepted it both hands because why? I wanted to play netball for the firm and represent Sri Lanka as well, basketball. But you know what? That didn't mean that I didn't defocus on auditing. I learned auditing properly. I was so curious. I wanted to be excellent at it. So I learned the basics of auditing through practical double entry. Yes, it was very tough because I remember the first time they were telling me this bank reconciliation at debit and credit. So now when you get your bank statements as a customer, a credit is money coming into your account. Debit is money going out. Whereas on a double entry, actually debit is money coming in. And for the longest of time, I didn't understand how to make it, how to comprehend this. But that's how I learned. And I was really good at it. So you end up learning skills. Once you learn that skill, you're confident because you know it well. And you never say no for new learning. So if you are in a degree of, say, management, if there's an opportunity to learn about marketing, don't say no, because that develops your mind and your knowledge, and eventually that comes out through your personality of capability. I went through the audit firm. So when I started, I worked part-time. I was a director consulting. I ended up being a manager audit, but director consulting for Somestral. But I worked part-time. So that time I didn't invest too much on my knowledge enhancements. But when I had to become, get into full-time work because I had to provide for my kids at the age of 30, I joined a freight forwarding and logistics company called Aramex, right? And mind you, I didn't even think twice. I went as financial controller, but most of my mornings was with operations. I would sit with operations. I would learn it. I'll understand like the bag coming in from the airport, how they break it up, how they invoice, what are the controls. So basically by working and being curious, I kind of got so much of knowledge that eventually nobody could actually tell me certain things because I knew how it worked. It doesn't mean that every time you're given an opportunity, you know it, you know what's happening. So when I was told to set up shared service at Hemas, in Sri Lanka, shared service was not known. Only John Keels was also implementing it at that time. But then what they said was, Kasuri, can you go to India? We will set up meetings with that time, Gempact and all that. You go and see some of the big BPOs in India, learn from them and come. And this was not like for me to spend 3 months or anything. I just had 3 days there. And you know what, getting into a flight, going to a foreign country to learn something I don't have a clue about is something I thought I'll do. Because why? My capability will increase. So I believe that whatever you learn, the knowledge resides with you and it's your investment. It's going to increase your capability. So I did that. So what I'm trying to tell you all is, look, when you get opportunities, don't say this is not your core fundamental area. And where does this, you must be wondering, what is she talking about? Where does this define your self-development? Because over time, when you learn more things, your confidence level on your capability would increase. And that's a big part of your personality, I must tell you. So this is how I set up shared services. Another story is when I became CPO. CPO, it was Chief Process Officer. What it meant was I overlooked group finance process, and I also overlooked group IT. Now, this is an accountant who did auditing, who went as financial controller into freight forwarding, into leisure sector at Hemas, set up shared services. What does she know about IT? I still don't know about IT, but my boss said, look, you will know how to get good business outcomes. So technically what I did was I actually learned to understand the concept of technology. I left the technology itself for the best people who were better than me, who worked under me to do it. But you asked the right questions. So when they said cloud computing, I said, okay, what does it mean to me? It meant that you are having no physical server, so you're releasing real estate. It meant that you can use the same thing in a more efficient way. That makes the cost come down. It makes it faster. So things like this I understood. So technically, again, don't shy away from learning new knowledge. So that's what I was trying to tell you, that on your capability, knowledge, the choice is yours. Your choice is yours to say, I don't like it, so I'm not going to learn it. Or I don't know what it's about, but I can learn it. You might learn it. And now, for example, when I was doing finance, I was an accountant. Did I like the job? No, I hated it because I thought it was one of the most boring jobs some human being could do. But that was my way of getting my salary. So I liked it. I liked it because my salary would come. I could feed my 2 kids. And that is one way of looking at it. So when I moved into transportation, MD, as in pharma, I learned. So what I'm trying to say is your capability doesn't stop at one point. At every point, build up slowly your knowledge. Be curious about everything out there. That will enhance your knowledge, and that would create your personality and capability would be defined. So because by me doing so many different roles and learning things which I didn't need to learn. For example, I remember when we acquired the Gaul Hospital, Southern Hospital in Gaul. The deal was done on a Sunday, and I was CPO at that time. And they called me and said, Kasturi, can you go there on Monday and see whether the financials are okay and how to set up the systems? Now, when I walked into that place, that poor gentleman, one guy called Premasri, I think, was accounts department, had 2 people. And this poor gentleman used to put no double entry, it's just single entry. He'll write, received so much of OPD and that fees, paid these doctors, then bought tea, bought whatever, right? No double entry, no P&L, no balance sheet, nothing. Now imagine if I go to talk that language with him. He was almost getting a heart attack when I asked a few questions. So I just let it be. I just spend time understanding the capabilities of people and environment. And then I took an A4 sheet and I drew. I said, columns, you write it in these things. If it's T under this, revenue under that, and you fax it from that person in front, that shop in front. So what I did was, then I told him, go invest in some money, company will pay, go and learn Excel. So step by step you learn. So now I was a director at that point, right? But I thought, look, this is one learning which I needed to do, setting up from scratch, and you do that. So because of all this tacit knowledge, I was known as a person who had operational excellence, because over time I had seen so many different industries. I've got my hands dirty in many industries, and that way I had a capability that others didn't have, because I had invested in learning. I invested my time, I invested my energy to absorb, and over time that became mine. Nobody could take it from me. So all I'm saying is, look, if it's your capability, your development is up to you. It's your attitude. I know still when I have a conversation with some young people about doing another role, the first question they ask is, okay, tell me, so what's my new designation and how much is my salary? You know what? In my whole life, I never asked it. I have never asked for my designation. I've never asked for salary, but I don't think that's a good thing, not asking about your salary. But that shouldn't be your biggest priority. It should be, you should be excited about learning new stuff, because at the end of it, you will not know 5 years, 10 years down the line, that whole thing would develop you. Your knowledge, different experiences develops you. Nobody else can take it away from you. So that is on your capability and knowledge. So I never did an MBA. I must tell you honestly, I didn't do an MBA because I thought there was no knowledge enhancement for that for me. But when I was 48, I went to Harvard and I did this 1 year of executive education. And my gosh, I thought I won't be able to handle it because it's a lot of reading. But I loved it. I loved every minute of it, and that was one of the best times of my life. But that was learning at 48. So what I'm saying is, what you all are doing now, it's a whole journey. If you want a career, it's always going to be a journey of knowledge and absorbing. The second aspect, which I think is a very important aspect, knowledge, and I would say that's like 40% of a person's development, or 30 to 40. The 60% is your personality. Why I say that is, you need to navigate the environment, you need to navigate society, you need to navigate the corporate world. In all that, you need to face challenges. You should be able to connect with people. You should be able to take decisions and be a bit resilient. Now, these are all big words coming from me. It's a big word for you, but it is how you face life. So for me, I would put personality first element I value out of people when I interview, and I know that's part of me, is courage. And so where do you get courage? You don't pluck it from a tree. I must honestly say, you won't pluck it from a tree. It is you being able to know who you are, be proud of who you are, being through a lot of hardship, a lot of challenges. It doesn't have to be hardship. Confident in your personality, and that becomes courageous, and you overcome situations, and that gives you courage. So for me, as a human being, very early on, when I was in school, I would always stand up for what I believe, which meant that I would take on unwanted fights. I must be honest, somebody else's fight I take on because I think somebody else is being treated unfair. Over time, I kind of managed, don't pick your battles kind of a thing, I think, talk to myself. But generally, I still stand up for what I believe. I can be known as too straight, but that's who I am. I always believe that you can't let people down. So I must tell you, at very early young, when I was in school, I'm born in January, right? So, you know, when the student is born in January, you can play an extra year for college. And when, so I believed I should never let them down, the team. But when I was doing my A-levels, that was the last year, I was in grade 13 and about to leave school, I could still play under 19. And this time I had to play under that girl who was in grade 12, Christine. So my mother at that point wrote a big letter to my principal and said, now Kasturi has given enough time to the college, to school. Can you please not release her from any school sports duties, because she has to do her A-level in August and she has not followed classes. She needs to focus. So now this whole letter came and the team was saying, Kasturi, please play and stuff like that and practice. I said, don't worry. So my mother was on one side. So I used to go for my tuition class. I negotiated with my maths teacher to say, look, you hold on Ford, I'll do a couple of sums. Give me 1.5 hours. I'm going to run to school and play. So, by that time, my friends would equip themselves with my shoes and all were left in school. I would run there. I would go and practice for about an hour. I'll come back at my tuition teacher's place. I would go have a quick shower or wash my face or whatever and study a bit and come. So that way, I didn't want to let the team down. And we won the All Ireland that year as well. But it was because I believe that you can't let the team down. And that was my personality. There's one thing, again, I stood up for the team, is when I was captaining school, our teacher, there was a famous teacher called Miss Trixie. She was very sick and in hospital. And she said, and the principal asked Kasturi, can you train all 3 teams? I said, yes, sure. And I was training the teams when some of the past people started coming to practice with us, which is good. What was not good was they used to kind of use filth and abuse our girls if they were not playing properly. And the team was really scared. So I actually walked up to the principal the next one day and told them, look, if you want to teach, want me to train, I'll train. But don't let the past peoples come in because they are harassing our girls. And the principal stood by me and told the rest of the past peoples, don't come. You can't play with the younger girls. So I stood by the teams to protect them. So technically, in some ways, courage means you need to stand up for what's right. So how do you get it? I guess you all are in universities, but I found a method of getting it is because when I played sports, when I was playing for the basketball team, our teams, we had players from all over, and there were players from Kandy who'd come and live with us. We all didn't have money, but we would learn to handle, work with each other, appreciate each other, love each other for who we were, not what we had. And that diverse background, mixing with them, learning to lose more than we win. That was one honest thing. Learning that we can't be excellent overnight, that you have to keep practicing hard if you want to do well. Learning what commitment is gives you this personality of courage. You don't back out. You're not afraid of the unknown. So now today, I think when you see Hema's results, we have done decently well in COVID because COVID is unknown. And today, even I met with my team and was talking, they said uncertain, tough times. I said, tough times are there during certain times, certainty as well. When it's uncertain, you know it's going to be uncertain for the next 2-3 years. But either ways, we need to navigate, and I'm not backing out from the vision I've set. We are going to succeed through this, and basically that is not because I know where I have any answers for it. No, I don't. But I have faced so many situations in life, whether it's in the sports field, mostly in sports field, mostly in my at home, that I realized that, yeah, if challenges will come, but you know what, if you face it courageously, you think on your feet and you navigate it, you come out of it, and you know, at the end of it, when you come out of it, you look back and say, I'm wiser by it, I'm bolder by this, I'm more courageous by this. So that's what I want you all to get, because when we recruit, we look at people who are courageous, who are not afraid to take on a challenge. And that's very important in the corporate world, because we need people to go out there and do it. So I remember when the CPO role was being given to me, it was a huge challenge, because the person who was the CPO before me was called a CIO, but he was an Indian gentleman who came from a tech background. So technically, I was trying to sit on that seat and own it as the way a non-technologist would do it. And it took a lot of courage, but you know what, you do it because you know what you're good at. I also know what I was not good at. So I knew I was not good at technology. I knew I could understand business. So I used my strengths, and I got the people who were better than me on technology to work under me, so that I knew I was not shy of what I was not good at. So this courage, I have a story about this young girl called Ranjini. She came from Galle. Today she is, I think, a finance director of Anantara, or financial controller of Anantara, the whole chain in Sri Lanka. She came from some school in Galle. She was a prefect. She wanted a job at shared services. I didn't have a vacancy. When I interviewed her, she spoke a lot in Sinhalese, and she didn't mind the fact that she didn't know English. She was attempting to speak in English, which was fine. She was very courageous. And she just said, Madam, give me a job. So I said, I don't have vacancies. However, I'll give you temporary internship, say 6 months or whatever. If you're good, I'll absorb you. She was so good that we took her on. And then she became so valuable. I remember one time after about 4 or 5 years, she wanted to resign because her parents were in Galle, and she felt that Monday to Friday when she works and goes back, she doesn't have time with them. We even said, no, you work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Colombo, and you work on Friday and Monday from home. That time we had online working at that time. So many years ago, that would have been in 2008, 9, because she was valuable. So, and she was bold. She came, she challenged me and said, give me a chance. Today she became a manager, senior manager. Today she left Hemas and she joined Anantara, and she's doing as a financial controller. And I thought, when I heard this story, I thought, amazing, this girl who came. And I still remember the first interview. I can give you another story where somebody came out without too much of confidence at an interview. This was a young boy who came for some interview, and he didn't have any confidence. He frowned, he didn't answer anything properly. So we just dismissed him and we didn't give him the job. But because it was two ladies who had the interview, we said, something is bothering this kid. We told HR, call him and ask, why did he perform so badly? Why didn't he bother even answering any of our questions? And when he answered, he said, no, the father had lost a job and he had to give up his university because he had to work and educate his brothers or something like that. And we felt sorry. So we told him, okay, we'll give you another interview, but this time you come up with confidence, show what you can display. And again, he came. This time around, he showed what he knew. He was good at math. He showed how he could solve problems. And we recruited him. We recruited him as a trainee and some executive. Eventually, he became so good that we paid for his education. He did a private degree. Today, he's one of the top people at Evergreen Shipping for us. He's heading the marketing function. So all I'm saying is, sometimes don't doubt yourself. That kid doubted himself. You might not get somebody who is going to allow you to give a second chance. So you have to own yourself. So in my personality, if you look at it, I'm not shy to say, in all my jobs, I always said my kids came first. I was not shy about that. Don't ever be shy about it. I would say I'm too straight. Yeah, that's who I am, but I wasn't shy about it. I can cry when there are happy moments, and I cry when it's sad. So that way I'm a very big softie. That's who I am. And I'm not shy to say that my whole world, my kids mean the whole world to me. So all I'm saying is sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, be proud of who you are. In your personality, don't try to copy somebody else. Being the best version of yourself is the easiest thing. Copying someone else is very tough because you can't be consistent in copying. So figure out who you are, figure out what you stand for, understand what your strengths are, build on your strengths, and be aware of what you're not good at. That gives you kind of a rounded courage of who you are. But you have to you'll have to face challenges. You'll have to understand challenges, define you. Challenges will help you grow in confidence, and that develops your personality. The second part of your personality is how you feel as a person. That comes from within, right? So for me, that comes from a fact that I must say how I feel inside will be based on my mood. Some days will based on how fit I feel, whether I exercise or not, how good I feel. It also it depends on, and when I go for meetings, I must be honest, I will also, depending on the type of meeting, I'll dress for the meeting. Now, I'm not talking about dressing is based on brands. So when I was young, my father didn't work. We came from we didn't have excess money at all. My mother was the only one who worked. So half the time, not all the time, actually not half the time, I wore my sister's old clothes. However, I would make sure it was washed. And I knew which style I was good for me or what I liked. It doesn't have to be good for me. It's just a style I like. So today you will not see me wearing suits. I will wear sari because I love the sari. And for me, because I love it, I think I'm confident in it. If you see me, if I get into a suit and go for a meeting, I won't be confident. Half the time I'll be thinking about what I'm wearing, whether I look okay, that I might not talk about, I will forget what I'm going to talk about. So this comes from within. So, and it is not, you still see me and think that I'm confident all the time. there are some meetings I know it's a challenging meeting. So those days I will dress well. I'll dress my sari. I will wear heels because I want to be a bit taller. And I will make sure I'm groomed well. I don't have expensive stuff, but I'll make sure my hair is neat, whichever is there, so that the personality itself is kind of formidable. So technically, these are small skills you do, but that comes from within. When you do this for yourself, within you, you feel confident and you're happy in your personality. When you're not confident, you're not happy, and that reflects in conversation as well. In your self-development, one big part of your life, surround yourself with good friends, because interacting with people, adjusting and doing stuff for people and working with people and being there for people is a big part of developing your empathetic side, developing your human side, which is an important factor when you come to work. Because remember, you work 8 hours a day and you're working with people. And people are complex. If you don't learn to work with people in uni, in school, in your family, in your neighborhood, it's going to be very tough when you come into the corporate world, if so. So basically, that's on what I would try to say is that part of your life is up to you. It's more the human side. But you have to know who you are in a way. You have to stand up for what you believe in, and don't compromise your values just because you want to be seen as right. So basically, that's it. On confidence, I would say, as a person who has gone through a lot in life, the best way of building confidence is a lot of failure and mistakes. Learn from it. But what we expect you all to do is have the spirit to do better. So that will give you, each time you do that and you pick up, you won't make the same mistake twice because you've learned from it. And that's confidence. The other part of your personality is, I get this conversation from unique people. How you dress, does it matter? For me, it did, but it was not the whether it was a new dress or a branded dress. It was just that it was clean and I had it ironed and I felt good about it. So I guess that's one part of it. And don't underplay the personal cleanliness part of it, because that's a big part of your confidence in how you engage with society as well. So if you look at me today, yes, I'm confident. If I will wear my sari and go, I'll wear my shorts and go and work out. But that's because that's my life journey. And I don't try to impress others because I'm happy with myself. And that's not because I'm a CEO. That's because who I am. And some people who see me after 30, 40 years will say, Kasturi, you're still the same. Yes, I'm still the same. I'll still stand up for what's right. I'll still fight for the undertrodden. But I know what I'm good at. I know what are the things I don't like and what I'm not going to be good at. But that's okay. So that's basically, you know what you're good at, you develop yourself, enhance your knowledge, because I enhance my knowledge only because I didn't say no for any new knowledge. I thought every new knowledge is going to help me. So I learned it. So today I have learned about logistics. I've learned about pharma. I learned about maritime. I learned about aviation. I've learned about finance. I learned about technology. That's because I never said no. But at the end of it, the knowledge which I learned is with me. And if I see some random problem, some old knowledge will come and help me solve it. With that, what happens? I get confidence. So basically, this is a gist of it. Your personality or your personal responsibility for self-development have two sides of it. Your capability side, which is your starting life now. But even though you're starting life, nothing stops you from reading about things out there, reading about global trends, and taking opportunities whenever they come your way. The second part is your personality. and how can you be confident? How can you get courage? Both of those would anchor around experience, anchor around you knowing what you're good at and you knowing what you're not good at, but willing to acknowledge that you're not good at it, but willing to learn or work with people who are good at it. So what I'll do now is I'll pause here. I'll open myself for questions. You can put it on the chat box if you want to. Yeah, I'll take it from there. So this is one big thing about Sri Lanka. They're shy to make the first attempt to ask questions. So that is one big change you need to do on your.
Yeah, if they want, they can ask questions direct, or else they can put it to the chat box.
Yeah.
Just to start with, may I ask the question until students decide to ask a question? I think there will be more questions. Now, when a newcomer, new applicant comes for an interview, I know that there is a screening process through the HR. As the CEO, how do you judge the personality of an applicant? What sort of features that you use to detect the personality?
So the first is look, while they pass through qualifications, that's a base level, but mostly the importance is to understand how they've impacted their passion on impacting society, where they've worked, where they've displayed leadership, whether they've done sports, what are the extracurricular things they've done, their position on culture, their position on environment, and how they look at curiosity, innovation, things like that. So it's very little on base qualification. I won't even probe too much whether they came first in class or whatever in the batch, but how they view, how can they work with people, how courageous they are with the mistakes they've made. And it's mostly the attitude. So the attitude would encompass their courage, their confidence, even confidence in telling I'm not good at this, but I'm good at this. And these are the personalities what we look at more than the qualification.
Do you have any questions received from students? The chat box directly to you?
I am not sure how I can see some general chats. I don't know.
No, maybe they can send it directly to you. Students know how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. The second question, second question is that, do you see a big difference between the graduates of public universities and private universities? Those who are coming for employment.
There is no big difference. I see a big difference from graduates from Sri Lanka and global universities, and that's not on knowledge. That's only on confidence of presentation and some global view. But between private and public, not much. Only slight difference is again, I think the state university students have a bit shy compared to the private university students, because I think I don't know where it comes from, but generally in Sri Lanka I don't see too much. Unless I just feel that they're a bit more not conservative, they're a bit more shy, and when they lack a bit of self-confidence when they come in for an interview.
Okay, thank you very much. Students, you can ask questions. Usually they ask many questions, and it's open for students to ask questions.
Hello, excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So, madam, when we step into the industry and when we go forward with our career, like how much of time should we, like when we have completed our education, so how much of time should be spent on and invest on learning? Because as I have a doubt that when we invest time on learning, it will distract us from earning. Like we might get lost on some earnings. So how should we do it, and how should we balance our time on both of them?
So firstly, you all have not completed any education. The degree is only an entry for you to get into employment, right? While you're at your job, you always have to learn. I'm not talking about getting a qualification. I'm not talking about that. Otherwise, you will not. And I must tell you, I worked from the age of 18 and I educated myself while working. So when I was 20, I started because I didn't have money and stuff. So at 20, I started working, studying and earning together. So I don't think you will distract as long as you can balance. So at that time when I was studying, I was playing for Sri Lanka. So I would have started at 5:30 in the morning. I would go finish practices around 10 o'clock, go and work for about 4 or 5 hours. Again, 2 o'clock, I'll do pool practice. Again, 5:30, I go for SIMA classes and come home at 9:30. Did I give up? I didn't earn much. I paid like 200 rupees. I started, I've been getting 2,000, 3,000 rupees. So in my life, I didn't learn for qualification. So you know, after SIMA, I didn't do anything till I got a job at Aramex when I went as financial controller. Then I needed to learn to consolidate and I had forgotten my consolidation. So I wanted to learn that from ACCA, which is a technical subject. I just enrolled in ACCA to just do financial and accounting and consolidation or something like that. I passed it and I didn't bother finishing ACCA. I had one more subject. I didn't because I only wanted that knowledge. And I did that to enhance my knowledge. Even though I didn't do an MBA, but throughout I would have, if there was something on technology, I'll go and learn about it. So learn is not only books. You can, so even today, I would read about, now purpose is a good big subject. I would read small articles about it. So technically, while you're doing your job, it's important you focus on your job. But if you have to learn about your job. You learn things which will help you do your job better. So that's not a qualification again. If you're saying you're doing, what degree you're doing, Shamika?
I'm doing a mechanical engineering degree.
Yeah, so now if you are working as an engineer and you have some problem to solve, it may be you really might have to learn what somebody out there in the world has solved that problem, and how can you bring that back in. So there is knowledge you learn. So yeah, you don't have to distract yourself for doing this and then an MBA and all that. You can work. You earn also if you invest in expanding your knowledge and then learn new skills, even though you're engineering. Now see, if you look at Dr. Hans was an engineer who became a CEO. If you look at our chairman, who is Hussein, Hussein was a group CEO before Stephen was before me. He's a chemical engineer, but they went into marketing and they expanded their knowledge. So technically, I think my answer to you is expand your knowledge, not that just to study books, but knowledge wise. That way you can earn way much more. And I think you never stop learning. I never stop learning. I'm still reading. I still find time. I'm not a avid reader, but when there's an interesting subject I needed to enhance my knowledge so that I can discharge my job better, I do read it.
Thanks a lot.
There is another in the chat box. I have just forwarded about the accent.
Is it there? Okay, let me see. Okay. Will the English accent be advantages or disadvantages? Will be professional. So no, I think, as I said, that girl Ranjini's answer, when she came for an interview, she couldn't speak English. The accent doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter at all. Even the language command doesn't matter at all. You need to be able to learn it eventually, but if you can confidently give your message, that's fine. We only want your attitude on how you're going to solve, your capability of facing independently working. So don't worry about it. But I would only encourage, if you feel you are going to lack confidence because of it, invest in time to in learning, and there's nothing wrong in that. So I went to China once when I had to do an aviation deal for China Southern. And this young Chinese girl nobody could speak English, but this young Chinese girl spoke English as if she came from America. So I said, were you educated in America? She said, no. I said, how did you learn to speak like that? She said, after work or after school, they come and watch American movies and talk, repeat and talk like that. So that was how she learned to speak like Americans. So that's if you want to. I mean, we went to local schools. Um, I didn't have an accent or whatever, but because I constantly speak now, I speak in English. Those days when I was playing for Sri Lanka, I spoke more in Sinhalese. I had forgotten the Tamil I knew also. Now today I know more Sinhalese than Tamil because I speak more Sinhalese than Tamil. So it depends on it. But from a business perspective, accent or your command doesn't matter. That's not what we want.
Hello, madam.
Yes, Tarinder.
Madam, when you recruit someone to your entity, do you give more priority to people who have followed professional courses in addition to the degree, university degree?
Not exactly. What I would like to see is how did he balance both? And did they do what I'll give priority is somebody who has worked while doing a degree, somebody who has been having the capability of handling a job or something else or a startup and doing a degree. Doing two courses, it's a lot of academics. So I kind of will be, for me personally, that is me, and it's not everybody. I might shy away from people who have too many qualifications, because that might be a fact that they are good at studying and practically how, that's why I said there's about 40% or 30% on your qualification. Balance it practically. How can you work independently? How can you take decisions? How can you face problems? How can you navigate a problem? How do you reach out and work with others? All that comes not from a textbook. That comes from outside your textbook. That's where you have practically engaged in societies, in sports, in drama, even in a startup or some cause or environment cause. All that will help you. So there's a question here. Madam, how can we decide what is our career path and where we belong? Now I really love learning, but I cannot identify future. How can I get about that? So welcome to my world. So I never knew what my career path would be, what I was going to be. So when I was in school, everybody has to say, no, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. So I ended up saying I want to be an engineer because I was good at math. But I knew what I was good at. So I chose engineering because I knew maths would lead to engineering, and I said that. Eventually, within a week, when somebody offered me this job to play netball at an audit firm, I accepted because I was not hard-coded in a career. I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I got qualified, I still didn't know what I wanted in life, but I knew my qualification and would allow me to go into the finance field. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes if you don't know what you want to be, that's perfectly okay. Out of my two sons, the elder son was identical like me. He didn't know. So I used to say one thing, then do something which you're good at and then navigate it. My younger son knew what he wanted to do. And that was just not to do a desk job and go and work in a garage and become a mechanic. That was his whole idea. But for me, this whole accountant thing helped me to get my job, get a career going. And as the first instant I got an opportunity to give up this finance and do something else, I did it. And did I know what I wanted to be after that? No, but I knew one thing. I wanted to do very well in whatever I did. And I wanted challenges in my life. So now he's a chairman. Hussein would tell me when we had our career conversation, so firstly, what next? What would you like to be? And I say, I don't know. I honestly never knew. But I said, Hussein, the day I'm bored and I'm not challenged, I would want to change. So I knew that. I knew that I love challenges. I love to succeed and I wanted to do well. But I didn't go behind. So it's how you look at it. If you don't know what you want, that's fine. But figure out what you're really good at. And whatever opportunity which comes your way, figure out how you can add value to it and where can you excel in it and learn it. So there is one here saying, what should we do after graduating to be an accountant? Be a chartered finalist and be a member is not enough. Well, there are different options. If you want to be a traditional accountant, you can go through chartered. If you want to be a management accountant who can move into general management, you can do CIMA. The choice is yours, depending how you aspire. So if you see most of there are CEOs who are CIMA accountants, people think that that's there. It's just that but I worked in audit firm for 10 years, right? And I had more chartered in me, even though I was qualified as CIMA. So it doesn't matter. Depending on what you're good at and what you like to do, you can move. But the thing is, within an organization, if you're doing chartered and you're an accountant, you should have conversations with your boss after some time and say, look, I like to try this. I like to try marketing. I'll try to try supply chain and operations. I think today they were talking, I think your professor was talking about his nephew. I know his name, even though I'm the group CEO, because there's conversation about the smart boy who's now willing to move from finance and who's doing digital and doing some project. And so they should be willing to take different roles. And that's where they grow. And when we hope private sector jobs are enough for additional personal qualification. Well, it's personal. We don't expect qualification, but we expect personality. Personality should be, you should have some, how do I talk? I don't want you to come for an interview and just sit and say, okay, and without energy. You should have energy. You should be happy in life. You should know what you want. If you don't get it, even you should be, it's more than this. There should be more about you. So, I mean, I guess that's where I want you all to develop your personality, believe in something, be passionate about some cause, bring that energy out. So we need that. We are taking the decisions. So from a beginner, I will expect that. I won't expect you to solve the world's problems, but I'll expect to see some personality of a view of the world, a view of solving problems. Where have you solved problems? Courage, confidence in some ways, not confidence of the job, but confidence in his or her ability. We are taking decisions. Okay, the question is, we are, sorry. Yeah, Dilika.
Excuse me, ma'am, I want to know about your opinion on between something. Some people do their first degree and some people do their first degree and go for higher studies. Some people do their first degree and go direct for the industry. Then they decided to go for a higher studies after working for several years. I want to know your opinion about what gives you the best result in their working career.
So this is my opinion. I worked and then got my first degree. So I had some practical knowledge. But personally, I believe do your first degree, get your hands dirty, try a couple of areas in a job, figure out what you like, and then grow in that. You know, your higher studies has to help you in your job. Now, when I did my first degree after about 10 years, why did I go back to ACCA? Because I forgot that CIMA, whatever I learned. So now whatever you learn today in uni, once you start going out and after 10 years, you forget some of the things, most of it. Once you figure out what you really like and what career path, if there is a higher education or qualification which will help you grow in that, go. So invest some time in working, invest some time to understand what you're good at, what you like, what you don't like, areas which are out there, and then look at your higher studies.
Thank you, ma'am.
So somebody has said, I haven't got sports certificate. That's okay. I didn't do sports. That's okay. Barrier for job interview. No. So what I meant by sports is, what did sports teach me? It taught me that you can't be good overnight. It taught me hard work. It taught me persistence. It taught me that I had to make a lot of sacrifice. My family had to make sacrifice. And we can't succeed alone. So when you play team sports, you have to rely on others as well. is there another way you can learn these life skills? I don't believe these life skills can be taught on a book. So whether it's drama, whether it's working in for a project for the university, whether it is your community project, you have to do that and learn some life skills. So what, you don't have to have sports, but you have to, even if you're dancing, it means, so you say you have dancing, yes, because you don't become a good dancer overnight. You will have to practice and all do that. But figure out how you can appreciate other people as well. So that teamwork happens, helps you to do that. Because in a corporate, singularly, even as a CEO, I can't do any impact. People have to help me. I have to get the best out of everybody around, and together we can make an impact. I don't have a magic wand here. So technically, how do you work with others and get others also to work alongside you? That's a skill you get from life skills, whether dancing or whether any other cultural drama, that's it. So when you do drama, even you know your role, you have to support the other person, you have to, you know, work with each other. So that's how you learn life skills. If you have families which are, we all are from tough families which have tough lives or not too much of money, that teaches you another life skill of how to manage within the choice of, with the money you have and the choices you make. So one thing I had was, my parents, when it came after school, my sister and I had to take turns in cleaning our chicken coop. We had like 100 chickens, and my mother felt that because I did sports, the eggs, she needed fresh eggs. B is we didn't have money to keep buying chicken. So they used to hatch, and we used to have this whole thing. So we used to clean up the coop and feed them, and I would run for practice again. So we had bus fare, 2 rupees to go, 2 rupees to come, I think. And for 1 rupee, one bus fare, we would buy acharu. So that meant once I bought the acharu, I have to walk back. All the way from Bambalapitiya to Velawatha, Pamankada, I walked. But I can't complain because that's the choice I made. I can't complain that I don't have money. I ate with that money. So these are choices. So that those choices, you learn to make choices, you learn to live with it. That's experience.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes, Mihira.
Your speech is wonderful. I have enjoyed every bit of your insight on personal development. Madam, I have a bit of trouble in identifying my strength. Is there any practical method of identify our strengths apart from SWOT analysis and other theoretical methods?
So either it may be something you enjoy, right? And your way of identifying versus getting feedback. So I thought I was good at maths and problem solving. My teams and everybody looked at me as performance oriented. That's because I got feedback from them. So some way of identifying it is to get kind of feedback from others to say, what do you think I'm good at? The other way of it is something so now when I knew accounting of solving problems was my strength, because not that I enjoyed it, I must say I didn't on accounting, other problems I enjoy. There people would say at the end of it, Kasturi, if you don't have an answer for cash flow, if it doesn't tally, we give it to Kasturi, she'll answer to solve it. The praise I got after that kind of was like nice. So for that, I knew I enjoyed it. So I knew I was good at it because of the praise I got. Sometimes you're good at it. So with that, so I'm good at process. I know that. If you're looking at a huge system or a problem, I can map it out totally, right? And I knew I was good at it. That's because before others could even think, I have mapped it and told it. So that, because I knew I came faster with solutions, I was good at it. But most important, what I find what works is I get feedback from others. And remember, when you talk what you're good at, I must tell you, when you all are much further in your career, you all need to let go what you all are good at to learn the new stuff. So even though I was told that I was attention for details, operational oriented, performance execution oriented, to become strategic oriented, I had to give up all this because the brain couldn't adjust from this to that. So sometimes what you're good in the first 10 years of your career, when you have to shift, you have to let go to learn new skills. So get feedback and see from people, even your parents, your friends. It can be a soft thing. They might even say that you're one person who will somehow get work done from another person. That means it's a natural way of getting a leader in you. You don't have to be having a technical skill. I actually don't have a technical skill now, if you look at it. Even when I took over transportation or matter pharma, I didn't have a technical skill. But the skill I had was leadership.
Thank you very much, madam.
Kasturi, I think there are some questions in the chat box.
Yeah. So when it comes to private sector, that's more target and profit oriented, but I value people more than profit. So it is hard for me to get the job in private sector. Well, private sector is target and profit oriented, which will be important because that's how you pay salaries. However, that doesn't say that they are not people oriented. So now if you see, companies have to be people oriented to get the best out of people. Those days, you can see, you can have like a whip or very controlled environment. Nowadays, you can't have. Now, why did I succeed? Because the company Hemas 20 years ago was people oriented. They knew I was a single mother, talented, but for me to succeed, I needed the flexibility to be a mom, come late if I have to, go early if I have to, not come for some meetings or bring the kids to office if I have to. But that's because we're people oriented. So nowadays, organizations making a great place to work is a big part of getting their profit and targets. Then another question from a management student. Madam, is this position your goal? Did you observe opportunity on time? So unfortunately, I was never a person who looked at a position and chased behind it. I never did. I was a person who thrived on doing well every day. So it was like when I was at pharma, we had price control within 3 months of me taking it. So that means the government brought prices down by so much, like 50% or more than that. And without a mechanism, we were taking losses on exchange. How was I going to solve this and drive this company when we were taking about 300 million to the bottom line off immediately or exchange losses? So I enjoyed it. For me, it was find a solution. So I told them the simple mathematical solution is do more sales to bring the same bottom line, temporarily, short term, which made us look at things differently. We said, okay, so we have to get these kind of clients to get this bottom line. And today they are who they are because we did work that way. But after that, at that point, was I looking at Group C or no? Suddenly, Hussein, they had a conversation and said, we are sending you to Harvard. And I thought something was happening anyways. And I never aspired because I was happy in wherever I was. So my happiness didn't depend on a title. My happiness didn't depend on the next person's role. My happiness depended on whether I was happy. So my happy place was whether I was delivering results. I was very competitive. Even though you hear me see, I said I don't want a title and I was not chasing my next title. I'm very competitive. I want to be the best. Like if it was pharma, has to be the best in the industry. I wouldn't want us to be the second best to anybody. So I'm very competitive and I had challenges which I loved. And I was happy because I could be the mother I could. I love traveling. I want to go and see my kids every 3-4 months. So if I could do, and I'm spiritual, so I need to go to church. I need to do things and help people. I'm passionate about working with kids and all people. So when I could do all of these things and still have a job, I was happy. So title and the next job was not didn't drive me. So that is me. Some people are driven by this title, but I didn't. So next question, how do you keep your team motivated despite conflict and obstacles at both leaders and group members? So simple thing, I always say leave politics at the door. Conflicts, you can agree to disagree. Ultimately, let's talk about it. Let's challenge each other. Only through challenges are we going to get better results. So diversity in people and thought bring better outcomes. However, you can't take it personally. And it's easier said than done, I'll tell you. I remember when I joined pharma, there was this sales and then there was HR and finance. They would hammer each other on email. And I was like, how do you work like this? And otherwise, there's a WhatsApp hammering going on in the group. So I called them in. I told them, look, we are one team. You can have your disagreements. You don't have to share the same viewpoint. I'm okay with it. But when you go out, you're not going to take this and talk about it because you all are one team. Then when they managed it a while, Suddenly they started again. Then I called the two here. I said, next time you all have a problem, go into one of each other's your rooms, fight, shout, everything. When you walk out, none of us need to know. You have to be on the same page. Agree on which page you all are in and support each other. So I don't encourage as a leader, I never encourage politics. And surprisingly, once you make that statement, you can make. So conflicts will be there if you encourage politics. If you're adults, tell me at home, you all have conflict, right? But because it's for husband, wife, children, you all love each other, you all manage conflict. That's the same thing at organization. Conflicts are there. Motivated, how do you keep the team motivated? Give them aspirational goals and encourage them and celebrate when we win. And have positivity in every day when you go in. And I'm not ashamed to say that I don't know what I don't know. I don't know answers for everything, but I ask them to tell me certain answers. So it kind of works if you make an environment for people to share their ideas and together we solve stuff. There's a lot of positivity and motivation. So you say, somebody says I lack job experience, will be a problem at interview. So, well, if you lack job experience, you have to make up for life experience. So your interview board is not about when you come as a undergrad, we don't expect you with job experiences. That's why you're an undergrad. But we'll expect you to have personality and life experience and problem solving experience, or what you are bringing to the table. You'll tell, look, I'm good at this, this, and this. That's why I think I deserve this job. I'll do better. That's why I'm valuable for you. Let's see. A student in allied health sciences, can health professionals enter into industrial business world? Of course, you can. And I'll tell you what, COVID, only businesses which have done well globally, our healthcare has done really well. And if you take the 2030 prediction of trends, healthcare industry in technology, sciences, how we consume health services and products will change. So that's going to be a huge market. So it says, madam, do you believe that personality should come from sort of practices in school? In Sri Lankan education system, is there a possibility to develop personality compared to Western countries? Well, I think personality comes from you, what you believe in, what you stand for. So for me, from school days, I would believe in God and we would go to church every day or once a week or whatever. I believed as a human being, I believed in standing up for what's right and standing up for people who are voiceless, and I still do that. Did I try to conform to the norm? No, I didn't. So I wouldn't say the school system will only teach you values, and but I guess you all need to have, you know what's right and wrong. You know what kind of personalities you like. So the simple thing is, I know in school system you all have cliques. In universities you all have cliques, and you all you can have a choice of whether you bully or rag somebody or not. That's your personality. You choose what to do. The university is not telling you to do it. You're choosing to do it. So choose what's right. And that develops, and consistently choosing what you feel is right for the reasons you believe is right makes your personality. Madam, how do we get a job? Do they give priority for education qualification, personality qualification? So it's like this. Having a base level education is important to get a right to apply for a job. If you don't have a qualification, you should have absolute experience. So you should have maybe worked and displayed that you have experience in the field so that you can overcome. So technically, if there is a person with an undergrad qualification and no experience, and there's somebody with no qualification and no experience, the undergrad would get preference. If I like HR field before applying for a job, should I have to do HR course? No, I think go and work somewhere else with people and then come into HR, because HR is handling people and it's not policies and process nowadays to get people to perform better and help management to make better decisions on people. So you don't have to have an HR course, but while you're doing, you might have to understand what talent management, labor laws, and things are like in that context. Due to pandemic situation, the tendency of unemployment is increasing. As a management perspective, are there any solutions for this? Well, there is no short-term solution. I'll be agreeing. The one issue is there are industries which are going out of business, so there is less jobs. Second issue is industries which are in business, we have to pivot and become different in terms of digital, in terms of business models, and some of the people who can't adjust to it might get left behind. But the secret is we have, as organizations and corporates, we have to grow. Once we start growing, employment opportunities increase. So I guess that's the challenge. All Sri Lankan corporates and businesses and entrepreneurs have to believe and start investing and growing. That's the only way we can give employment, but up to the graduates, you all need to learn what's happening out there. Not in Sri Lanka, outside Sri Lanka. Bring the best in technology, understand what best practices are, and push the corporates to do better. So it's a two-way street. It's a difficult environment now. What are the tips for someone planning to start their own business? I think what you should, few basic questions. Why do you think you're going to succeed? What is your key? What is your single differentiator? Figure those two things out. See how you're going to be relevant to that consumer with that differentiator and invest a lot in that. What happens is once you start starting the business, competition is there. You try to be everything to everyone. Don't. Hold on to your idea. Try to make it work. Start pivoting and tweaking it based on customer feedback. Other than that, don't try to be everything to everyone. Veterinary fact student, what do you think about time management? Have you spent a whole night working? If not, how? That's a nice question. So I don't believe in working late. I think you're either inefficient or you're having something wrong in your life. So I don't believe I have, other than SAP time where I was part of the technical team which was doing migration. Couple of times we would have worked a whole night because we were doing the migration at that time. This is early on in my career. I don't believe people should work full nights, late nights. I would maximum. So there was this story about Kasturi won't work after 5 o'clock or about 6 o'clock. And I said, yeah. And somebody said, why don't you work? I said, no, I have better things. I have to go back to my kids. And the same ethos, I might do these things till late, but I don't. I believe there's more to life than only work. And I encourage everybody to be doing other things. So yeah, time management, you'll find the time if it matters to you. So I get up early morning every day to exercise because exercise is very important to me. And that's the time I control time. Then I work, and in the evenings I'll chill at home. I might do some of these work, and some days occasionally I'll work late. It depends. Like when I became CEO, I must say I worked for a couple of months, very late nights. Like I would have closed around, finished work around 8 o'clock, maybe for a couple of months. But that is not the norm. That's an exception. So somebody dreams on becoming an entrepreneur. Can you tell me something about it? So the dream, having the dream is the best thing. Then figure out what is the problem you're going to solve. So entrepreneurs succeed because they're solving a problem. So I was in this thing about with this, there's a Sri Lankan guy who manufactures this small Toyota part and makes a multi-billionaire, right? So how was that? How did that idea come to him? He said he went to Toyota in Japan and he was doing a factory walk around. And in one room, he said lots of people working on some product. So he tried to figure out what was this thing. So this was a very labor. So what did he figure out? To manufacture this small product, a lot of people were needed. So it was a labor intensive thing. Then he thought, my gosh, if it's labor intensive, Sri Lanka is much cheaper. Why don't I try to do that here and make it cheaper for them? And that's how it started. So you have to know what's the problem you're solving and how are you going to make it work for it? How are you going to be different and create value? Simple as that. So I would encourage dream, figure out what's the problem you're solving. And is it going to be a temporary problem or a permanent problem? I'm very poor at IT skills. It brings me a disadvantage. Yeah, that of course I must say, nobody can say you're poor at IT skills. Even at my age, I have to enhance my IT skills. Just I think there are plenty of online courses, Coursera. You have to keep it. Now technology and being digital is important. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. It will be an absolute disadvantage if you come into the workforce without getting yourself equipped. Science faculty, madam, if you have to make a choice between PhD and BSc with more experience, whom would you recruit? A BSc with more experience, a PhD and experience is okay, but I love to have experience with qualification, and a BSc with more experience who aspires to do a PhD, I'm okay with. Yeah, I think I've covered all the questions.
Excuse me, madam. Can you hear me?
Very rare, very faint.
Can you hear me now? So thank you very much, madam, for your inspirational insights. I have two questions for you. One is, being a woman, did you have specific obstacles that you had to overcome during your career journey? And the other is, how did you manage to strike a balance between your professional life and your family life?
So the first thing is maybe because, okay, I was a second of two daughters, right? And my mother never said, don't shout, girls don't shout, don't climb a tree, you're like a boy. I was always a tomboy. So I didn't, and because I played sports, and when we are playing for the national team, and when you're a Sri Lankan women's team, you practice only with the boys team. And for me, it was normal to play against the guys. So I didn't think, in my head, I didn't think that was a barrier. So wherever I went, I think I went through it, and I pushed myself through it because I didn't believe it was different, right? So I didn't face any barriers. But when I worked at Hemas and any other corporate world, when I was a single mother, it was tough because corporate worlds want full-time commitment. When I chose to say that I'm a mom first, and it comes to the second question as well. So when I chose I'm a mom first, and then I was excellent in my job, you'll find, many the teams, the businesses and the corporates really adjusting to accommodate you. So that's how I kind of managed it. The barriers I had for myself when I started growing in my career is I kind of doubted the way I lead, how I came across. So sometimes as a woman, when I take decisions and I conduct a meeting, the feedback of she's too aggressive, this word aggressive was brought very often. She's too straight, she doesn't allow others to talk. And I had to listen to it. When I realized, yes, I have to allow others to talk. They all don't think this way I think. I have to groom them to grow with me. So I would encourage that. I would slow down that way I spoke. And I would even say things like, if I see that they are coming with an idea which is not going to work, I'll say, that's interesting, but how if you think of it this way? So I had to become a coach. Aggressive, I couldn't do much, but I would tone it down with some words, the way I use my words, versus saying that's a stupid thing, or, I'm sorry, you have to do it. I'll say, look, we need to get it done. And I would adjust it with my tone. So I couldn't change my style because, look, I couldn't waste too much of time trying to be very nice to people. I needed, this is for work. But what happened was they saw my other side of it. They saw that I was really a kind human being. When somebody had a too soft in one way, when somebody had a problem with the company, I will make sure that we kind of are there to support. So they got to know who I really was, so that they respected my style in some ways and they respected who I was in another way. So that was about me. And the only doubt is I used to have doubts saying, can I learn IT? When my boss said you can do it, I kind of went and learned it. So once or twice I had doubt, but I was lucky enough, my bosses were more confident about me than myself at that point. On balancing, well, it's a perfect imbalance. But because my priority were my kids, I made decisions based on that. So sometimes I would have missed meetings because my kids were important and they needed me more. But sometimes I would tell the kids, look, I can't make it here because I have to be at this thing and work, I'll come late. So the choices, I made it based on that moment and what was more important at that moment. And I learned to live with it. So it's kind of a perfect imbalance. Some days it's balanced to more weight towards kids, some days more weight towards work. And end of the day, it's my choice. So I have to learn to be happy with it. So there's a question saying, as human beings, all of us have self-doubts. Yes. It may be due to external pressures from come within. I would like to know how we can overcome this. So I think to overcome that, try to figure out what you will be happy with as yourself. So I told you, I had self-doubts, but I was encouraged. But most importantly, I don't try to be somebody else. I'm quite happy being myself. I don't try to make other people happy by saying the right thing, which is going to make them feel that I'm part of them. I might say the thing which I believe in, and if they don't like it, tough luck. So I guess you'll have pressures, but eventually figure out what you be happy. You know what I always try to encourage people, figure out what fulfills you, what makes you happy. Whether it's and whether it is your health, your parents' health, whether it's your career, whether it's being able to travel the world, what makes you happy, and make that your recipe versus somebody else's recipe. Yeah, I think I covered everything.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Kasturi. So now we are going to the end of the program. So thank you very much, Ms. Kasturi. You have allocated your valuable time to the University of Peradeniya to uplift the students' knowledge, skills, and attitude. So you are a very busy chief executive of the leading company in Sri Lanka. I think our students got clear-cut idea and knowledge about how to take personal responsibilities for self-development. It is very important to them to build their career in future. I thank you on behalf of the Career Guidance Unit of the University of Peradeniya for your extended support given to us. We are hoping to meet you in future program like this. So thank you very much to giving this your support.
You're most welcome. I'm glad you all are having these modules. It's important because I guess as young students, they'll have a lot of self-doubt. And only if they hear, and I have I think the sales director of pharma. He started as a rep somewhere. Today he's a sales director. And he's doing his PhD. And he's doing a PhD because he never got into university. He did an open university degree, then he did a slim course at Kelaniya University. And he says, because I didn't get into university, I'm going to study. And he's in his 40s, he's doing his PhD. So there are plenty of stories. It's just that, you get exposed, you work at it, and be okay for the tough road, because sometimes through a tough road, you will be better off in the long run.
Okay, thank you very much, Kasturi. I also started my career as a science math teacher with 830 rupees a month, long time back, before entering to the university, immediately after A-levels, yeah. Okay, that's a really great session. Thank you very much, and appreciate very much your presence and your session with our students.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good
Thank you.
night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.